My dear students and participants who enrolled for this course, in the third session, I would like to continue the discussion which I have started in my previous session. That is introducing many kinds of cyber crimes to you, along with the law which is going to deal with them. The first category of offenses or the vast majority of cases are registered under this particular category that is called as hacking. So what is hacking? Hacking means an unauthorized access, right? Hacking is nothing but unauthorized access to somebody's computer, someone's Gmail account, someone's banking account, someone's laptop or a mobile, okay, or organization's network. This is called as hacking. Section 65 and 66, these two provisions of the Information and Technology Act, they deal with this offense of hacking. Now, hacking means, if I can draw an analogy with the offense which is committed in the real world, I can compare it with the offense of trespass. A trespasser, a stranger, enters into your house. He barges into your bedroom. Okay? He breaks open the door. He enters into it. What is it? It's nothing but unauthorized entry into your house. The same way, hacking means unauthorized entry into someone's cyberspace. This is what is meant by hacking in general or in simpler terms, right? You can see this slide. Yesterday I changed my Wi-Fi name to Hack If You Can. Then today when I checked it, I found it challenge accepted. Somebody already hacked it, right? So, now what I'm going to tell you here is, as I have already explained to you in my second session, there are various terms and jargons or terminologies used for various activities committed in the cyberspace. For example, like phishing, pharming, web defacement, DDoS attacks, salami attacks, right? Technologically, you have so many names, but to deal with them, law doesn't have so many provisions. We have to read them into section 65 and 66 only. For us, for law persons, for courts, it is nothing but hacking. So, I am trying to explain you what are the cyber crimes which can be read into this offense of hacking. Actually, to start with, hacking was a very good job. Now hackers means criminals, but at one point of time, hackers used to be ethical hackers. These people used to be scholars who did their MTechs and BTechs from IITs, and they will try to hack into a system to test the robustness of the network which is made or prepared by their team. So this is how hacking has started. But now for the law enforcement agencies, hacker is a criminal whom you can see here, right? There are every system has some lock. I am showing it. I am trying to picturize it here. There are firewalls, but the hacker can enter into the system by breaking somewhere the network. Some chain he will break and he will enter into the system and he will commit a crime. Okay. Data diddling is one such technological concept which involves, altering the raw data before a computer processes the data, and then changing it back after processing is completed. This is called as data diddling. For example, I'm trying to explain you this procedure with the help of a case. This was reported from state of Bihar, and what happened in Bihar for 10 years was that for 10 years no student from a government school could get rank from 1 to 10. Every time all these 1 to 10 ranks were going to some or other private schools. Then people got curious about it. There's an investigation has been started by the local police. They found that the hall ticket number, generally all of us get while writing the examinations, the hall ticket number is a 6-digit roll number. And the government students' hall ticket starts with 3. Whereas the private students' hall ticket starts with 4. Now the software manipulation which was done by the hacker there was, you can see, if the roll number is 3, that means the student belongs to a government school. If he gets more than 68, see, deduct 9. For roll number starting with 4, he gets more than 68, add 9. Right? This manipulation was done in the program by hacking into that program software, and they have done this alteration is done before the data is computed. That is why it is called as data diddling. For IT people you may call it as data diddling, but for law persons this is nothing but hacking. I don't want to name the accused here because it is a very popular mobile telephone company which has committed this offense, and it is still going on the investigation, so the names can't be revealed. Then the second kind of thing which I can explain here is denial of service attacks. Denial of service, distributed denial of service. Okay. What is this and how it is done? For example, all of us use this IRCTC ticketing system for trains and for booking butts in the trains. You made a program, prepared a program through which you are trying to send 1000 requests per second to IRCTC. Then what will happen? The system will hang, right? The system will not function, it will hang. For few days, people will not be able to have access to it. This is what is called as denial of service, right? By entering into the network, you as a hacker, you have done this. So this is called as technologically denial of service or distributed denial of service. But again for us, it is nothing but hacking. This is a picture which explains how distributed denial of service attacks do happen. Mostly these DDoS attacks are aimed at the critical infrastructures which I have explained in my first session: banking, agriculture, hospitals, army, navy, defense. Okay. So there will be a computer would be turned into a zombie, and that would be infected, and it will further keep infecting rest of the computers, whichever computer is connected to that particular network. Okay. This is an automated kind of a damage what happens. Then the third category of cyber crimes which is committed in the internet mostly is Nigerian letter scams. So all of us receive this kind of mails, that I have lot of wealth, I'm stuck in South Africa, I don't have a legal heir, I don't have family, I'm going to die in 1 month, I want to give away my entire property to you, like this, then if you show some interest, write to them, then the story starts. Then they will say that, okay, the wealth is stuck in the port, so in order to get it released, you please send me 2 lakhs. Then you will send 2 lakhs. Then you will say some other customs I have to pay 5 lakhs, somebody. So it keeps going on, right? This is what is called as Nigerian email scam. This is also hacking. Like for example, I'm showing you one example of Nigerian scams. I got information. I have been expecting his next of kin to come over and claim his money, because we cannot release it unless somebody applies for it as a next kin or relation to the deceased, as indicated in our banking guidelines and laws. But unfortunately, we learned that all his supposed kins are died alongside with him in the plane crash, leaving nobody behind for the claim. This is one mail which one of us have received. I am putting the exact mail here. Okay. It is true that many people have lost lakhs of rupees after responding to this kind of scams and to this kind of fake emails in our country. And if you can observe, there is a pattern. Like whenever a plane crash happens, whenever some catastrophe like this happens, some tsunami happens, some many people have died, then immediately you will get these kind of emails. Like in that around that time, people generally receive this kind of emails, because they want to look like very realistic, okay, and authentic. Then malwares. Introduction of a malware is also hacking. Malwares can be of various many types: keyloggers, sniffers, logic bombs, rootkits, Trojan horses, worms, virus, spyware. Okay, spyware means it will steal the data and it will send to the person, whoever is the owner of the server. For students, I want to tell you, I was part of one investigation. I was there in SP's office one day, and I have seen how that police inspector was analyzing the case. A girl came to the cybercrime cell and she complained that her nude photographs were found in some of the pornographic websites, whereas she never sent those kind of photographs to anyone, nor she has any relationship with anybody. She was actually in a distress. Then they tried to analyze her laptop. They found that there is a malicious software, a kind of spyware installed in the laptop. Then how this got installed? What she did, generally we watch movies in the internet and you try to download it also. While downloading some movie which was available for free in the internet, along with the movie, the spyware also got downloaded into her laptop. And what is the spyware doing? When the moment the laptop is on, it will open the camera and it will record the surroundings. The girl might have kept it on and changed her clothes or something. So entire thing, whatever is happening in that room, in front of the laptop, that was recorded and sent to the server. And that cyber criminal has edited it and uploaded it in the pornographic website. So please don't do this mistake of downloading things from the internet which are available for free. And also don't get into login into the Wi-Fi's where in public spaces like in a mall, in airport, in a hotel, because once you allow them to enter into your mobile or laptop, they may enter into the system and they may steal your data. So this is one cyber security aspect which I can explain it to you as a matter of creating awareness. Then this is another kind of cyber crimes which happen. They are called a programmed chips. Intentionally they install a faulty microchip in the system, in trains, in some kind of electronic devices, so that electronic device will stop functioning after 1 year, 2 years as per the program instructions. So these are the examples of such kind of intentional hacking activities. This is a crime as per section 65 and section 66 of Information and Technology Act. Phishing and farming. This is nothing but using spoof emails and directing people to the fake websites. Okay. Farming is technically more sophisticated. It can be called as an exploitation of a vulnerability in the DNS server of software. This is an example of ICICI Bank. At one point of time, ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, HSBC, all these banks have suffered a huge amount of losses because of this kind of attacks. Right? If you can see, these are the details of the website of the ICICI Bank, the IP address also you can see. But this IP address is a fake IP address. ICICI Bank never had this IP address, and they have prepared this kind of a website, right? User ID, password. When you enter into it, what you will do as a customer of ICICI Bank, you will type your ID and password and try to log in. The moment you type it, this particular very crucial information would be stolen and would be sent to the server, and he will withdraw the money from your account, right? In this attack, ICICI Bank has lost millions of rupees actually. And this is you cannot identify in between the original and fake one. This is the fake one and this is the original website, right? It is not easy to differentiate these two for a common man. This is how people are becoming victims of this kind of phishing attacks. This is another case of Citibank. This modus operandi is different. What they did, the background screen which you are seeing here is original. That belongs to Citibank, but the pop-up window which you are seeing, they kept the background as it is, but they have made a fish pop-up here. This will steal away the information relating to the debit card number, PIN number, user ID, password, right? These are the informations which they really want. And this is happened with Citibank. It's also again a huge scam. Then this is Kingfisher's case. In this case, what happened? The modus operandi changes from case to case. Okay. Sales agents and waiters, they collected credit card charge slips from some restaurants and malls. They noted down the CVV2 number from the slips. They have passed on these details to a gang. This gang has started a travel agency. With this information, they started booking tickets for the next day and sold to passengers at a discount. Right? Actually, the money is going from somebody's credit cards and debit cards. The actual amount which was lost in this scam was to the tune of 13.47 crores and the number of tickets purchased were 15,255. Can you imagine? Web defacement. This is another kind of attack happens in the internet mostly. All our government websites are prone to this kind of attacks. What is web defacement? That means you can see here on the left side of the screen, Department of Justice, okay? This is the website of USA's Department of Justice. Now they have made it United States Department of Injustice. Move my grave. Some nonsense they are writing, right? Now here, it is a CBI's website. They made it Central Stupidity Agency. Okay? Stop lying something. All kinds of things are written. This is nothing but web defacement. And legally, this can be called as hacking. Now, these are like so many crimes which are committed in the cyber space. Apart from these, there are so many other offenses which I will explain in my next sessions. Since in these 3 sessions, I tried to give you a full account of what is going to happen in this entire course, I am trying to touch upon all important aspects of the entire course as a coordinator of the course. The second part of my course would be dealt with by Mr. Muhammad Irfan. He will explain you some cyber forensic tools. He will allow you or he will help you to use those tools when you are in a particular crisis. you can use those forensic tools and you can come out of the problem. And let me tell you that these forensic tools you need not buy. They are called as OSINT tools, OSINT tools, Open Source Intelligence. They are freely available in the Google. They are freely available. He will tell you how to download them, he will explain you how to use them, and he will also teach you as to in which situation you can use and how evidence can be retrieved, right? So this entire branch is called as, or this entire branch of science is called as cyber forensics. So what is the solution to prevent? So far what I am telling you is, this is how the crime is committed. This is how the law tackles with it. Now I am also telling you as to how to protect yourself. What kind of preventive actions you can take. This preventive action is there available with the cyber forensics. The solution for this problem is cyber forensics. What is this cyber forensics? As a branch of forensic science, it has developed very recently. As a branch of forensic science, it has developed very recently, and it can be called as an youngest branch of forensic science. What they do? They will retrieve the evidence, they will identify the evidence, they will preserve it, they will present the digital evidence in the court of law, which is legally acceptable, okay, in the courts. So this is the job of a cyber forensic analyst. Cyber forensic analyst. Now, how it is different from the traditional branches of forensic science? You might have heard about toxicology. They deal with toxic substances, drugs, poisons. Then you might have heard about DNA and fingerprinting. You might have heard about questioned documents. Then ballistics, which deals with bombs and other kinds of explosives. These are all traditional branches of forensic science. Whereas cyber forensic is different in the sense it works on digital evidence, right? And the earlier branches of forensic sciences, which I have just explained, they don't work on digital evidence, right? So that is how it is different from those traditional branches. Now there are various branches again, sub-branches of cyber forensics. The first one is, I am introducing you to or giving you a bird's eye view of the branch of cyber forensics. Disk forensics. Disk forensics means what they do here, they acquire and analyze the data stored in the same on some form of a physical storage media like computer forgery, tax evasion has happened, pornography, right? So they will retrieve the data from a computer, from the hard disk, from various many places, and they analyze. Network forensics, some online and offline analysis, right? It is a kind of a process of examining network traffic. These offenses of hacking, email cheating, online frauds, they all come under network forensics. Then software forensics, right? This is nothing but they will help to determine the ownership of a particular software or software liability issues or logic bombs, virus, IPR issues. Then embedded forensics. This is like a branch of cyber forensics wherein they analyze a pre-programmed chip. The example of Skybus, washing machines, mobile phones, okay. Washing machine, for example, I'll tell you. This is a scam found in the state of Punjab. A particular company has given an advertisement in the newspaper saying that our washing machines are the best of the quality, and also I am challenging anything, any problem if you face within 1 year, I will replace that old washing machine with a brand new one. This was the challenge. So many people bought that washing machine. And what happened? many of them found that just after completing 1 year, the next day, this washing machine is not working. And as per the agreement, within 1 year anything happens, he has to replace. After 1 year, he is not responsible or liable. Then they filed complaints in the police stations. Number of complaints were filed. Then they found, with the help of embedded forensics, that a programmed chip was found embedded in the washing machine, which will give an instruction to stop functioning once 1 year is over. Right? This is a kind of a scam they committed with the help of embedded chips. So to unearth, to analyze this kind of scams, embedded forensics is used by the cyber forensic analysts. And this job of a cyber forensic analyst is very complicated, right? Like they will, the police department, they will seize a computer and they will put in front of the cyber forensic expert. It is a huge space, no? Like it will be going into gigabytes, megabytes, gigabytes, and whatnot. So where is that evidence available? Where he has to find out? That is a very big task in front of the cyber forensic expert. It's a very complicated job actually. So what actually they do? They try to identify the evidence, right? They try to look at the timestamps, whether they were manipulated. Then they will try to look at the directories, files of a logical volume, and then they'll go to physical backup like disk imaging, cloning, mirror imaging, and they'll also look into issues during imaging like data integrity, speed of imaging, etc. Right? This is how a mobile forensic workstation looks like. Right? The data found is like an iceberg, but you have to dig so deep to exactly find out what is the evidence which can be used in the court of law. Right? Now let me tell you, for a common man or for students who are not from the computer science department, or for that matter any law student, what we need to understand is if you delete a particular file, you have not deleted it. All that deleted data can be retrieved by the forensic expert, right? You have renamed a particular file, the original name also can be retrieved by them. It is not a difficult task. So these are the kinds of activities which are done by the cyber forensic expert with the help of forensic tools. Some of these tools are taught to you in my course by Mohammed Irfan. You can also retrieve some data. By mistake you have deleted it in your laptop, then he will explain you with the help of some particular forensic tool. You can retrieve the data. But every time you cannot retrieve. When you can do it, when you cannot, all these details he will explain. Now, there are so many issues which the cyber forensic expert will take into consideration while making an analysis. Like a hard disk is given to him, then he should not work on the original hard disk. He has to make a copy of it or he has to clone it, right? And he will give a lot of importance to the hash value. Because if there is a change in the hash value, means there is a change with the authenticity of that particular document, particular server, particular hard disk or something else, right? So he will base himself, or he will give lot of significance to this hash value while deciding the authenticity of that particular transaction. And what you can expect from a cyber forensic analyst? Data retrieval from formatted disks. Like what happens is sometimes some virus attacks your system and then you are not given any option except to format the disk. You will do it, right? Then you will lose the entire data which was present there earlier. So all that data can be retrieved by the cyber forensic analyst. So, and then you receive anonymous mails. Okay, some of those mails can be indecent. They can be defamatory. In that case, the email can be traced, right? But there is an exception to this. If you get a mail from virtual private network, then it is very difficult for anybody, a cyber forensic expert also, to find out the origin, because again it takes many routes and it changes its IP address. So the original IP address from where the email has originated, you will not be able to find out. Then email box recovery, you have deleted those emails but you can retrieve them. You have deleted some content which was sent to recycle bin. Those files also can be retrieved. And forensic analysis of mobile phones is possible, like you have deleted some important data, then you can retrieve them. And when you delete, a common man thinks that you delete a particular file, delete a particular data, we think that, oh, I have deleted it permanently, but this is not the case. That is still can be retrieved. But when sometimes I have told you that you cannot retrieve, when? Because after deleting on the same track, if you write again some other data, like some other data is overwritten on the same track, then even a cyber forensic expert cannot retrieve the data. So what is possible, what is not, I have put a kind of classification here. Recovery of deleted data is possible. Recovery of files modified, created, deleted, organized, can determine which storage devices were attached to a specific computer, which applications were installed, even if they were uninstalled by the user, okay, which websites a user has visited, okay, all this information is possible. What is not possible is, if digital media is completely destroyed, recovery is impossible. Digital media is securely overwritten, recovery is very, very complicated, or it is almost impossible. So this is how cyber forensics helps us to find out the evidence which will help the courts to punish the cyber criminal. So I have introduced to you all the three aspects of my course. One, the internet, then crime, then cyber crime, and cyber forensics. So all these aspects we are going to teach as a team. We are going to teach you, and you are going to learn all these kinds of crimes which are committed, then the law relating to these crimes, then the technology involved, then the cyber forensic tools, and then the cyber crime investigation also. How the crime is investigated, what kind of data in the investigator or the police person or the police officer would like to have for a prosecution, how they do the data retrieval, okay. All these aspects will be explained to you by two very well-known experts. One is Mr. U. Ram Mohan, SP Cyber Crimes, and then Mr. Vamsi Krishna, IPS, and also he is an ethical hacker. At present, he is working as a joint commissioner in Bangalore. But for 7 to 8 years, he worked in National Police Academy. So they all bring their experience, which they have gained in the ground, to you, to the classroom, and from there you can really learn a lot. Thank you so much for the patient listening. Thank you again.